Good morning to everybody and welcome. I'd like to start by greeting the Program Director, Honourable Minister Ibrahim Patel, and ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure and an honour to be with you once again. As South Africa, I would like to assure you that we value our relationship with the United Kingdom and Northern Ireland and its business community. The warm relations between the two countries span many decades. I'm delighted to welcome you all here this morning to discuss the important topic of global business service. President Cyril Ramaphosa is especially pleased. In fact, he stated it was remarkable, unquote, that South Africa was ranked first in the world as a destination for the global business services in a speech he made in April this year. Before going further, I'd like to acknowledge our colleagues from the dtic and BPESA, who I hope you will be able to interact with during the course of this conference. As you know, there are a range of reforms that are being talked about in the UK and Europe for some time now. The speakers in this program are uniquely placed to debate these issues and highlight the key themes, trends, and current practices for you. Of particular interest will be hearing of the priorities and developments in South Africa for international investors, companies, standard setters, and other influencers. But first, let me mention the benefits that the business process outsourcing can bring. When we think about sourcing, it is often in terms of firms seeking to reduce their cost base by placing business with external providers or other group entities who can provide a service cheaper and more efficiently. However, the benefits of outsourcing are not solely financial. Outsourcing can help firms offer an enhanced customer experience by allowing them to provide around-the-clock service across different time zones. Outsourcing can also give firms access to key skills and technology that may not be available in-house. For example, we are seeing significant growth in the use of cloud and other service providers. In the future, we also expect to see increased use of technologies such as robotic process automation to deliver both process efficiencies and cost savings. It is clear that the outsourcing landscape is continuing to grow and evolve, and the nature of activities being outsourced are becoming increasingly complex. Again, we note that these new developments present substantial benefits and also challenges and risks, but we feel that we have the capacity to overcome them. As such, we are looking forward to hearing the perspectives of all conference attendees this morning. Today, we really want to facilitate a fruitful discussion with you, being reminded that in 2018, His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa set a target of $100 billion US in additional investment over 5 years. He also launched the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan in October 2020. The plan, which is aimed at speedy and sustainable recovery, emphasizes, amongst others, energy, security in the green economy, infrastructure development, job creation, agriculture and agro-processing, mineral beneficiation, and most importantly, the digital economy. We also wish to highlight opportunities available in South Africa, as Team South Africa would put it, real impact, real value, think South Africa. Together with my team at the South African High Commission, I would like to assure you that we are always ready to assist in your inquiries and any interests you may have. We have a very interesting morning ahead. And once again, I am honored that the South African High Commission can offer such an appropriate venue for this gathering. I wish you all a very successful meeting.
Thank you so much, High Commissioner, Your Excellency Nomathemba Tambo. Always a pleasure in welcoming us, and particularly in promoting this BPS sector. We know if it wasn't for COVID, South Africa House would be open. Would you giving us a warm welcome even further? Thank you very much. And also in collaboration with the dtic and BPESA, we bring you this webinar today, which is a very compact program in terms of us. We have in our midst Minister, the Honorable Ibrahim Patel, Minister of Trade and Industry and Competition, as well as we have the update on the value proposition of the BPS sector, two case studies focusing on location strategy and offshoring, as well as BPO and local partners that will give us case studies. And then we'll have a Q&A session, and we'll have the closing remarks and vote of thanks by our Director General, Ms. Mabitse Thompson. So a quite compact program, and I'd like to get straight into it because Minister Ibrahim Patel will leave us after his remarks, his keynote. But just before I hand off on to you, I'd like to recognize the global participants, particularly from the UK, and it's fitting for us to host this webinar today in the UK, following the accolade in which South Africa is the #1 destination, following the award from the Global Business Survey, as well as the UK is our largest global services trading market. But also to inform the audience that the Minister Ibrahim Patel is also a member of the National Corona Command Council, and in that council he played a very, very instrumental role in keeping the BPS sector open as an essential service, and this was able for South Africa now to accelerate to serve key markets such as the UK, Australia, and North America, as also on a weekly basis as part of our risk adjustment strategy. You work very, very closely with the industry in developing workplace protocols to give the BPS sector, keep it alive and open throughout our lockdown period. So Minister, with those few words, over to you, you have the floor.
Well, thank you very much, Her Excellency, Ms. Nomathemba Tambo, South Africa's High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, South African and UK business representatives, participants from the BPS sector, ladies and gentlemen, a warm good morning to you all. May I start with a thanks to the team from the High Commissioner's Office, BPESA and the DTIC for setting up this webinar on the eve of President Cyril Ramaphosa's visit to Cornwall to attend the G7 engagement. He, as you will know, is one of 4 leaders outside the G7 who has been invited, together with the Prime Ministers of Australia and India and the President of South Korea. Today's session, of course, is about the opportunities for UK-based businesses to use the platform of South Africa for sourcing global business services, and specifically for ethical sourcing. South Africa and the UK have a very long relationship. Many of the participants from the UK who are present here today may have visited South Africa in the past, seen our beautiful country, tasted its beverages, felt the warmth of our people and our climate, and so my task is made much easier. Since taking office in 2018, President Ramaphosa has been repositioning South Africa and has repositioned it as a key destination for investment for both domestic and foreign investors. The President convened meetings with investors annually, sharing details of government's work and highlighting the opportunities in the country. He set us a target of achieving 1.2 trillion South African rands, which is approximately 62 billion pounds sterling, to be raised within a 5-year period. We've had 3 conferences to date, and at these conferences, we've already achieved commitments and pledges by investors amounting to some 40 billion pounds sterling. And they included ones from very large global businesses that many of you will recognize, like Coca-Cola, Amazon Web Services, Google, Mercedes-Benz, BMW, PepsiCo, and many others. Most recently, the Ford Motor Company made its biggest investment announcement in its 98-year history in South Africa, with an announcement of a 830 million pounds sterling commitment to expanding its production of light delivery vehicles. We are now the biggest light delivery vehicle supplier to the European Union and in the market of the United Kingdom. So why are these businesses coming to South Africa, and what's the relevance of it to the global business services? I want to offer you 10 reasons why many smart businesses globally have focused on expanding their footprint in South Africa. First, South Africa has a vibrant market with a growing middle class, an affluent consumer base, and excellent returns on investment. South Africa is also the most industrialized country and the most industrialized economy on the African continent. It's the continent's principal manufacturing hub and a leading services destination. We have the largest presence of multinational corporations on the African continent. Global corporates reap the benefits of doing business in South Africa, which has a supportive and growing ecosystem as a hub for innovation, technology, and fintech. South Africa has a progressive constitution and an independent judiciary. And this is important to investors. The country has a mature and accessible legal system, providing certainty and respect for rule of law. We have favorable access to global markets, and we're now negotiating an African continental free trade area to boost intra-African trade and create a market of around 1.2 billion people with an enormous combined GDP that will unlock industrial development. And we also have several trade agreements in place with the United Kingdom, with the European Union. We have preferential access to the United States market through an arrangement approved by the US Congress. We have abundant natural resources. We're the leading producer of platinum group metals, and numerous listed mining companies operate in the country. We have advanced financial services and a banking sector with sophisticated capabilities and a major footprint in the rest of the African continent. It is Africa's financial hub, with the JSE being Africa's largest stock exchange by market cap. We have world-class infrastructure and logistics. And more recently, government is committed to significant additional investment in partnership with the private sector. We have the largest air and sea ports as well as logistic networks on the continent, and we are ranked number 1 in the World Bank's Logistics Performance Index for the continent. We have a young, eager labor force in South Africa with a number of world-class universities and colleges producing skilled, talented, and capable workers. The country has a diversified skill set with emerging talent, and a large pool of prospective workers. And there's quite significant government support for training and skills development. And finally, I guess I can say that we have excellent quality of life with favorable cost of living, with a diversified cultural, cuisine, and sport offering. So if you're looking for a place where managers want to be located, given our superb weather all year round and world-renowned hospitality sector, many companies see enormous advantage in South Africa. In my remarks today, I want to focus briefly on the opportunities for your businesses in the use of South Africa as a location for business process services. And by way of contextualizing the country's attractiveness, I want to refer again to what the High Commissioner mentioned in her opening remarks. Over the past few years, South Africa has been placed among the top 3 countries in the annual Front Office Business Processing Services Omnibus Survey. I have no doubt you're very familiar with the survey, and a number of you would have contributed to it. But this year, South Africa was ranked first in the world for global business services as the most favored offshore CX delivery location in that survey. It gathered insights, as you know, from over 600 executives from 8 key sourcing markets, including the UK, the United States, Australia, Canada, France, Germany, Italy, and Spain. Now, of course, it's one thing to get people to say in a survey that they think South Africa is an excellent place to source these services. It's another thing for them to commit their money and their contractual power to do so. And for that reason, I'm really pleased that some of the leading UK-based companies are now being serviced from South Africa through local business process services. Let me give you an example of some leading UK brands whose back office services are being sourced from South Africa. They include British Gas, Beagle Street Insurance, Compare the Market, Crown Commercial Service, Direct Line Group, Dixon's Carphone, Hastings Direct, Hiscox, lastminute.com, Lloyd's, the Innovation Group, Mobile by Sainsbury's, Now TV, O2, Premium Credit, Prudential Insurance, TalkTalk, TSB Bank, Scottish Power, Shop Direct, Student Loans, Virgin Group, and Vodacom, or rather Vodafone. Now, I mention these names because you may recognize many of them, and they're being serviced by close to 40,000 South Africans working in the BPS sector. And it's a growing sector. The industry's employment compound annual growth rate over the past 4 years is 22%. So you see not only a stable sector with significant pulling power for big brands, but also one that is expanding. We have energetic management teams in South Africa, and Andy Searle, who will be speaking shortly, will give you a sense of the strong working relationships that we have in place between the industry and the South African government. Now, why is it that companies are locating in South Africa, and why should you consider locating more of your businesses here? We have a sophisticated and resilient infrastructure that creates the environment for offshore services to be based here. Our telecommunications network is principally digital, with the latest in fixed line, wireless, and satellite communication. We're the most advanced on the continent. And aside from the key UK brands that I've spoken to you about, we also attract companies like BMW, Samsung, Amazon, American Express, Lufthansa, Investec, and T-Mobile, who use South African back office capacities. South Africa is price competitive. I'm told by the industry that we're about 60 to 70% more cost effective compared to the UK in terms of total cost of operation. And we, broadly speaking, within the same cost benefits as significant Asian locations, but with more resilient infrastructure. We have a strong and diverse talent pool with the language skills available in the country. Remember, English is one of our official languages. And we have strong customer service culture and the ability to service customers with multiple services, from tech support to voice support, and these expand the value of the offering in South Africa. You've got a one-stop shop here. But a lot of the strength and capabilities that we bring to this market are honed in the first instance by deep domestic market expertise in our banking and tech sectors, which has grown by supporting South African businesses. We're pursuing insurance as a key area in the UK, for example. And so South African companies have helped service providers to get the kind of skill and customer savviness that you look for in your businesses. And we don't have only one location where you can come to. We have a choice in destination from Cape Town to Durban, to Gqeberha, previously known as Port Elizabeth, East London, Joburg, and Tshwane. And UK companies are in 4 of these 6 locations already. It's easier to contract with South African companies. There are similar legal systems, and we're compliant with UK privacy laws. We have our own domestic legislation that you will see when you compare them has a strong alignment with UK privacy laws. There's, of course, the time zone advantage. It's now 11:26 here in South Africa. And you see the advantage of being in broadly similar time zones. There's a cultural connection between South Africa and the UK that provides an opportunity when customers call in to connect immediately, not just with the language proficiency, but with the entire idiom and cultural experience. I spoke earlier about why some of the larger businesses outside the GBS sector locate in South Africa. And one of it is our role as a significant gateway to the African continent. But we also do work with other parts of the world. We've been the joint authors with the UK and 4 other countries of the ISO standards for call centers. I know that there's a growing interest in the United Kingdom on ethical sourcing and governance, and I strongly welcome that. And you'll find in South Africa a strong commitment to these, to recognizing our environmental responsibilities. And we've been a strong and enthusiastic participant in global climate change commitments. And our president is leading a drive to green the economy. We have strong systems of labor relations with labor legislation that means that companies operating in South Africa have to observe decent work commitments. And that means that UK businesses will know that they operate in a jurisdiction in which these social standards and social responsibility obligations are embedded in the law. And we're committed to gender equity, with half the South African cabinet being women, very significant female participation in parliament and in public life and in the business community. We're also one of the 10 founding members of the Technology and Business Services Council. So we're able to provide industry leadership in this council. Yesterday, I met some of the participants who are here from South Africa today, a number of companies in the global business services space. And we agreed yesterday that based on the strong successes we have achieved with the global business service sector in the country, that we have an excellent platform and that we can use that platform to scale up the size of the industry through a public-private partnership. In the lingo of South Africa, it's called an industry master plan. And it is intended to have better and more joined up efforts between the institutions responsible for helping us generate skills for young people, the infrastructure providers, local government structures, and national platforms that the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition provide. I'm sure in the course of the discussion, you'll be given some details of the incentive arrangements we have in place, but we think we can do better by aligning the skills and the, the opportunities for access to infrastructure in a single offering. But there's also opportunities to enhance South Africa's value proposition in the more complex and specialist areas, looking at areas such as legal, financial, medical, ICT, and other skills. So yes, process-driven call centers and business process services will and are currently an important part of what we offer. But we also see for those companies that are looking for a little bit more, who are looking for problem-solving skills and for tapping into a skills base of specialist skills, that South Africa is well positioned to provide that. Your MC today, Yunus Hussain, heads the Invest South Africa agency of my department. And he mentioned what had happened last year during the lockdowns. These lockdowns, as you know, were global. And we looked carefully at how we can put protocols in place to provide a safe work environment so that we can keep the global business service centers open and at the same time protect workers and managers. And the sector agreed to significant social distancing, sanitation, and other measures. And South Africa was able to provide these global business services, even in a period when many other centers elsewhere were constrained. And in this period, we learned some useful lessons, particularly to build a more resilient environment, because we can't predict the challenges that the future will pose for businesses. But what we can do is bring to the partnership a stable policy environment, a government that sees opportunities out of global business services to have the skills base of South Africans made available on markets elsewhere in the world using the latest technologies. Some of the lessons we're learning and some of the insights we're getting is about work from home arrangements and the use of digital hubs closer to where people live so that we limit supply disruptions. I have invited the industry to look at the kind of needs that global markets will have in future. That we've passed a significant threshold of technology, innovation, and absorption in societies across the world, that COVID-19 provided a jolt that made all of us realize the opportunities that the new digital networks provide. And so as countries retool and rethink, we want the global business services in South Africa to respond well to that and to provide opportunities for local businesses to satisfy your needs. So I'd like to invite the UK participants to visit South Africa for holiday, but also visit South Africa for business purposes and see the enormous opportunities for your business to have the South African location for the provision of world-class back office and business customer services. So I would like to wish you well in this webinar. We have a good, solid team of technical people from the department who will be able to answer the technical questions. We have the South African business people, the business process services operators who can speak, I think, with a lot of confidence from their own experience of operating in South Africa. And I look forward to seeing you in South Africa in due course. So Eunice, thank you very much for the opportunity really to make these remarks and to wish you and the participants well in the rest of this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Ibrahim Patel, for laying that platform and for that excellent keynote address. And thank you, Minister. We know you have significant other engagements that you have to see to. So thank you very much for spending the time and giving us those few minutes today. Thank you, Minister. We can move on into the program. And what we can do is that you can, when the speakers coming up, you can put your questions in the chat, and the speakers will be able to answer your questions in the chat, as well as we'll have a dedicated Q&A session. So let me ask the CEO of BPESA, Mr. Andy Searle, to come and give us an update on South Africa's GBS landscape. Andy, the floor is yours.
Good morning, Eunice, and thank you very much indeed. First, just by way of greeting, good morning, High Commissioner, Your Excellency, Nomatamba Tambo. We miss not being there in person. As you mentioned, it wasn't long ago that we were all together, and look forward to those days again. Honourable Minister Patel, thank you very much for your presence and for your address. DG Malebo Mabichi Thompson, our partners in the DTIC in the UK and South Africa, our South African-based operators and their UK clients, and most importantly, a huge welcome to our UK-based guests, who I'm hopeful draw great insights from today's session and will in time come to visit the country as the Minister invited you to, and locate your business here so that you too can experience, as others have done, the great value on offer. Our Minister Patel has set the scene and highlighted the long-standing relationship between the UK and South Africa and the GBS sector that served business in both countries very well to date. He's also highlighted so comprehensively the key features of our proposition that contribute to UK businesses addressing some of their pressing needs with offshoring and outsourcing work to our country. And he highlighted the 10 key reasons or good reasons why investors choose South Africa. He's done it so comprehensively, and I think that just is an illustration of how joined up business and government are, which is a strong position for us to be in as partners. So what I'm going to do now through a few slides is elaborate a little bit more on what he's discussed as a lead into the two case studies that are going to give you, I think, the insights at the coalface that will be far more tangible for you. Just by way of introduction, BPESA is the industry association, as you heard Eunice and Minister Patel say, and we function to represent the GBS sector in South Africa together with our partners in marketing South Africa to the offshore markets, facilitating a sustainable supply of skills in the country to support growth at scale, and to ensure that the growth in South Africa is inclusive, and that the country continues to be competitive and can scale in the ever-changing global markets. Thanks, Tracy. So a little bit about who South Africa services. The Minister talked about the prevalence of UK clients in our portfolio, which you can see from that slide. The UK has always represented the larger portion of our export services market, and we hope that this will continue. However, the past year in particular has seen exponential growth and interest in new business coming from other territories, particularly the USA and Canada. And there are many other markets that source work from South Africa, as you can see in that illustration. And we see this trend continuing as demand for English-speaking voice services and niche services grows. Thank you. The Minister talked about the solid foundation that we've got, and there's domain excellence because of that across many verticals. We've seen rapid growth in the UK market in particular in telecoms, retail, energy, e-commerce, insurance, and travel. But the broader suite of financial services, digital and ICT, and some of the other sectors are still relatively nascent in their growth, but are underpinned by deep expertise and innovation in South Africa, and really represent an opportunity to be unlocked by business in the UK. Thank you. Minister Patel has already referred to the position that South Africa has now been recognized with as the top offshore front office CX location. And this has been a while in the making. And it's a testament to what executives across the global sourcing markets feel about South Africa based on their practical experience and their perceptions. However, this research is going to be best underpinned by the voice of our clients and our operators, who you're going to be hearing from shortly in the case studies. So I won't comment further about this, but would urge you to listen to their stories. South Africa offers capabilities in many areas, highlighted in this illustration. And I think as we move on from this slide, I'm going to draw down to the fundamentals that underpin these. Thanks, Tracy. So let me start by taking you through the key elements of the value proposition that underpin those core factors of our proposition. And first is the English-speaking talent pool. So this is a large-scale, broad and deep pool of talent in South Africa. Interestingly, that just 4 years ago, there was a misperception in some of the global sourcing markets that South Africa could not really scale and offer growth at scale sufficient to meet the needs of many of the captives, but also the large BPOs looking to locate business here. This has been addressed since then, with many supply-side initiatives that have really opened up access to talent pools that were not previously accessed anywhere near to the extent that they are now. And all of these have a common base of a strong English language and cultural affinity with our sourcing markets. Now, feeding this talent pool are over 6,000 quality secondary schools or high schools, 26 universities across the country, 50 colleges with more than 360 campuses. And so this is an institutionalized high school and post-school education system that's then complemented by the work that our clients and our operators do in the continuous development of skills. And these universities also rank highly amongst the global institutions. And in fact, we've got 12 of our South African universities that rank in the top 1,500 institutions across 81 countries globally. And one of them, the University of KZN, made the list of the top 2% of the world's leading academic institutions based on rankings of world universities. Thanks, Tracy. Now, we heard earlier from the Minister that in addition to the foundation of English language skills, which is a core strength and pillar of our proposition, we have deep domain skills across a range of different verticals. The numbers are there for you to see. But what I want to add to that is that complementing the educational and academic component that supports our skills base is a rich ecosystem of compliance. And all our operators servicing your market are GDPR compliant, but we also have our own stringent standards and acts. For example, our Protection of Personal Information Act. The governments have just recently signed the new Cybersecurity Act. There's work underway also for a pending data and cloud policy that will be passed in due course, and many other regulatory components that make this a safe working environment for you, and where clients and operators can be assured of the security of their data on premise and work from home. Thank you. Impact sourcing is a practice that was pioneered in South Africa and has since been widely adopted here with great success and it's rapidly becoming mainstream in the mature sourcing markets and a requirement in most procurements policies of large corporates. And it's about marginalized communities being afforded access to learning and working opportunities. In our context, there are millions of young South Africans who are out of work with huge talent, who with access through work from home capabilities and new approaches of giving them access into this particular sector. You heard earlier the minister talking about taking work to the communities and creating different and innovative ways of accessing the talent pool. They are able to and currently sustain the growth that you heard about, more than 25% compounded annual growth for the past 3 years and accelerating. Over the past years, the UK operators based in South Africa and many of the UK clients, the names of which you heard earlier, have supported this impact sourcing drive and have made that mainstream to their own sourcing strategies with great results. Our top position in the global markets bears testament to the quality of those young people who, once they access these work opportunities, demonstrate their great empathy, their ownership of queries and requests, their emotional connectedness with the customers, the ability to handle the more complex and emotional related calls that are escalated them rather than just the rote interactions that are completely repetitive. And impact sourcing has really unlocked this entry-level talent pool for growth at scale, which complements the higher end skills for complex and highly complex jobs that are produced through our institutional education system. Thank you. Now, from a connectivity point of view, South Africa has a well-established ICT infrastructure, and over the past decade, you'll see from the illustration on the left-hand side, has become connected with full redundancy on our east and our west coast to all our major sourcing markets. That's extended, and not only do we have that connectivity and redundancy, but we also are very price competitive in our international voice and data charges. But the rollout of broadband, fiber and wireless infrastructure in South Africa continues at great pace, with government and business working together to really accelerate the changes to regulations to enable this, and also the drive in specific areas to implement it. Infrastructure providers and business are collaborating closely with government to roll this out, and the evidence of that is already manifest in our ability to rapidly deploy work from home agents at the onset of lockdown through COVID last year, where over 50% of the staff immediately moved to work from home models without disruption. That's settled now over a year later, with approximately 38% of our workforce being based from home. So we've also, through this period, built onto those platforms capability through the innovation of our work from home products for security, productivity, load management, quality management, people support, which have really enhanced our service proposition. It's important to highlight and extend on what Minister Patel talked about in terms of diversity. So unlike many destinations where you get a high concentration of GBS businesses and you reach a saturation for skills quite quickly, we're very fortunate in this country to have many top grade cities with rich supplies of skills and talent and strong infrastructure and environmental support in each of those areas, and all with great quality living standards. So there's much to choose from, and what we found is that UK companies or clients being serviced from South Africa have progressively expanded into more than one of these regions with great results as they start to unpack and access the rich potential across the country through its diversity, and also just to continue to deploy risk mitigation strategies from a location perspective. Thank you. From a cost point of view, you heard the Minister refer to a guideline comparison in which South Africa, in some cases, could be as much as 60 to 70% less than the total operating cost of the same work delivered in the UK. This illustration will give you the average mean salaries in the CX BPO space and the digital and ICT space, and it will also demonstrate for which verticals are these apply to, for which countries we are sourcing to, and it will give you some overviews of the outsourcing criteria and pain points and challenges that are being delivered. What I'd like to also flag to you is that this cost competitiveness is a factor of our exchange rate, it's a factor of our cost structure, it's a factor of our productivity and competitiveness, and it's a factor of our incentives, which have for a long time been a key factor in our price competitiveness, but they don't stand alone. They form part of a comprehensive value proposition, and they range from just over £7,500 per new job created to £15,000+ per new job created as an incentive. In closing then, I'd like to talk about the relationship between government and business and the support that you could expect from governments in South Africa when setting up or scaling operations. And as much as this slide talks to some of the very specific elements of support through employment tax incentives, the special economic zone incentives, the various programs that we have, and there are many more, I want to talk a little bit more about the relationship as well, and then some of the other features of government support that are important to be aware of. Minister Patel talked about how business and government rallied last year in the face of the lockdown to ensure that essential service delivery would continue both locally and internationally. And that demonstrated both domestically and internationally the appreciation for the role of the sector in something as critical as tackling the COVID pandemic globally, and the responsibility that government and business have to ensure that that service continues without retardation, so that others who are in the same need as ourselves can receive that support without disruption. And that's really been a hallmark of this relationship between business, government, and our social partners over the years. It became most visible to the outside world through the COVID experience. But there's more to it than that. Government support for business is really strong. And in addition to the InvestSA team that's headed by the program director, Eunice Wissen, who provides a one-stop shop service for companies that supports them from pre-setup through to their setup and growth, with a whole range of hand-holding services as well, including visa support and many others. There's the dtic team that the minister heads to manage the incentives. And there's direct support that's provided to the sector through skills funding, policy formulation, engagement with investors for the duration of their stay. And government as business do treat our investors as partners for the full duration of your commitment to South Africa. We invested in your success and the impact that your investment has on social and economic factors in South Africa and the transformation of our youth and our society. So in closing, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity for us to address you. I hope you enjoy the case studies to follow, and let me hand back to Eunice Wissen to take you through the rest of the program. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Andy. Thank you so much, Andy, for that presentation. And we now move into the case studies. And we have a first case study on the location strategy and offshoring of shared services by Mr. Barry Jansen van Rensburg, who's the head of offshore technology from Investec. Barry, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Eunice, and good morning to all of our stakeholders and investors, and for hosting us today. I'm going to share with the audience a little bit about the Investec case study around opportunity that South Africa has offered us, in particular our UK business. Myself will do some questions and answers after the second case study and we've done this together. If I start off with the just a quick overview of Investec on the next slide, Um, uh, just to position Investec really quickly, we're a multi-geography organization in the financial services industry. We operate out of 9 geographies. Our 2 primary geographies is South Africa and UK, in which we specialize in wealth management and corporate investment banking, trading and settlement services, and private banking to mostly high net worth and high income individuals. The focus of the case study, however, is our UK business. And to share with you a little bit around the drivers around there, our UK organization has a very strong franchise in private clients, savings, and corporate investment. And our continued strategy in the UK is to drive those franchises to the markets, both in Europe, Asia, and other offshore locations. However, from a bank UK strategy, costs and being prudent on how we manage our costs are always a key focus. So from that perspective, myself and Sagri started partnering on what we refer to as our location strategy for the UK business. The 3 services that we at this stage offshore are the corporate client support center, which is a highly specialized telephonic support capability, shared services, as well as technology. And I'll be taking you through the shared services and technology now. On the next slide, to share a little bit of the context of why offshoring became a option for us. I mentioned earlier that Investec has been an organization operating out of multiple different geographies, and for many years we have been collaborating between these geographies. You will remember from Andy's slide earlier on that from an ICT infrastructure point of view, South Africa has made significant strides in improving backbone to connectivity. And part of that meant that from a SA point of view, we were able to start performing many more services to the UK because of the consistency and the reliability of those services. What this also allowed us to do is to start moving to what we refer to as globally distributed team. To share a little bit more about the Investec approach.
Sorry, if you don't mind moving your head, it's upsetting the sound. Apologies.
Thank you. No problem. When we talk about offshore capabilities, sometimes the focus is really around complete outsourcing. In Investec's case, because we had presence in South Africa, we opted for what we refer to as global insourcing, operating a captive, so to speak, within a different geography. And this is what led to what we now refer to as our location strategy, which officially was kicked off in April 2019. If we go to the next slide, just from a purpose and strategy, what we've been asked to do is really leverage this globally distributed talent, specifically the SA talent pools, to drive performance and value add for Investec. And in doing so, creating operating models which really enable these multi-geography talent pools. What is very key for us is to maintain a culturally appropriate mechanism to retain and attract these skills. The next slide just takes you through some of the drivers for Investec, and I'll just explore on each of these a little bit. When I speak about building and maintaining an Investec culture, what is very key for us there is that Investec operates in a very niche market. And for that reason, we have been very specific around what differentiates us versus what our commodity. And therefore, we chose to do a globally insourced model so that we maintain control and direction around the services that are being offshored. What we also found was that in South Africa, we already had an existing capability that drove process efficiency and allowed us to start building many more services, and I'll expand on those services in a few minutes, but to build out on those those processes, and to further seek efficiency. The obvious aspect of utilizing South Africa from a UK perspective is the lower cost geography. I mentioned earlier that we operate out of the UK, and in particular, our offices there are based in the City of London. It is no surprise that operating out of the City of London is one of the most expensive real estate sectors, and therefore the cost of providing some of the capabilities that we now offshored out of the UK found great cost efficiencies of moving into South Africa, both from a personnel or salary aspect, as well as from a facilities and a building maintenance management point of view. When I refer to specialized talent pools, what we also identified is that South Africa is investing quite significantly in digital and technology and shared services capabilities, and we have an emergence of large talent pools which we could actually leverage. And for that reason, we found it quite fortuitous that we could start tapping into those specialized talent pools in South Africa. The last two strategic drivers for Investec to offshore was also around retention. We find that the retention of individuals in the UK market, people remain in jobs for a shorter time period than they do in the South African market. And we decided to tap into that benefit because the cost of bringing new talent on board and productive is quite high, as you all would know. The short-term capacity driver is an emerging one for us. I think we're realizing in the market that that the gig economy is starting to move towards a lot more short-term engagements, and we realize that with all the factors that I mentioned earlier on, it gave our UK business a great opportunity of quickly scaling up short-term initiatives. It could be for things like burst capacity. It could be for elements such as sunsetting certain applications or functions. And South Africa played a key role or provided a huge opportunity in that. If we go to the next slide, Investec played around with the option of what the models are that we want to deploy. Do we want to do a fully offshore shared service or a distributed T model? And we realized that it's actually best for us to adopt a hybrid of both. The differentiation that we applied here is that a distributed T model were really beneficial for us, where from a UK perspective, we needed to retain control of that strategic direction. Or it could be a transitionary model, one that eventually moves to a fully offshored shared services model. And I'll expand a little bit later on that transitionary model in the tech space. From a global shared service model, we really looked at this kind of model where there were opportunities of leveraging the existing skill base within the South African business. In some cases, we also do not want to spend too much time and effort on driving the direction of a service. Instead, we would want to consume that service, and that's where the shared service model really plays a great benefit. It allows the stakeholders to identify what the key performance and key risk expectations are, together with the commercials that make sense, and lock into that. And then lastly, on the global shared services models, it further allowed us to find economies of scale. The slide that we're on at the moment is just giving you a view of what the shared services from a UK perspective are, which we've deployed in South Africa. The team as it stands today is a team of 52 individuals. The functions that we perform are client onboarding for both our corporate as well as our private client products. We manage international payments, ones that aren't able to be done electronically and need intervention and assistance. We've recently started doing a lot of the regulatory reporting for our UK business, as well as starting to create capabilities for financial crime and fraud detection across our various products. The key emphasis that I do want to share on the shared services is that when we started with this team, it was started quite small with a single function, and that function found process efficiencies and optimized the capabilities so that we were able to scale into the other functions that you see there now. And that's a continuing story. So in terms of what is coming next for the shared services space, our Wealth and Investment UK organization is looking for similar economies of scale and benefits, and busy partnering with us to move some of the roles across to South Africa. We're also doing this for Mauritius. The scale of our wealth and investment in Mauritius is smaller than our bank portion, but nonetheless, it's starting to utilize the economies of scale that we've built up in South Africa. The next slide talks to the roadmap for our technology space. The team there is 47 strong at the moment and also growing. The functions that are performed out of South Africa for our UK business at this stage includes application development for credit risk systems, our finance technology systems. We're doing quite a bit of work around the development of client onboarding and CRM for our various capabilities. The underlying communication platforms that are made use of by our business in the UK, as well as the online banking platform support takes place out of South Africa. Many of these teams are stretch teams, as I alluded to early on, which meant that roadmaps are driven out of our UK teams and execution out of SA. But if I focus on the what's next portion, you'll see we make reference to moving to full application delivery teams. And this is essentially where we are starting to move considerably more of the skilled and the higher complex roles to South Africa as well. Leadership roles, senior engineering and architecture roles. And to that extent, there's a pipeline right now of 35 additional roles that we're aiming to bring into South Africa, relocate from the UK. From a learnings point of view, we've been at this now for 2.5 years. I think the assumptions that we started with, some of them came true and many others were tested. And in that space, we've been able to curate and put together operating models that really helps us deliver at scale, which is why you'll see the Investec is investing more in that location strategy. Just some of the ones I want to bring some thoughts to. From a culture point of view, it's been very important for us to locate our teams. As much as our teams are performing a function for the UK, they operate within society in South Africa, and for that reason, we spend a lot of time engaging on bringing those teams closer to the UK business as well as our South African colleagues, so that they can find themselves in that community. From a tax, legal and governance point of view, we've been walking this path with the likes of Deloitte and BPSA that have guided us on what are some of the things that we are able to do, how to put the right commercial structures in place. From a talent attraction and retention aspect, this has been a very key one for us. As much as we attract talent to get these functions going, it's important to focus on the retention, which includes the focus to keep skilling people up, providing them with more complex roles, and that creates a pipeline of opportunities. That is essentially the case study. What we'll be doing now is just handing over to our colleagues, Robin Hoekstra, and then later on we'll open up for some questions and answers. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry, for that case study on shared services and technology services. And now we'll go into a case study on customer experience and improved e-commerce and commercial growth with Robin Hoekstra, CEO of Outworx, and Jonathan Byrne, of the head of customer service for musicMagpie. Over to you.
Good morning, everybody in the UK, and just good afternoon to everybody here in South Africa. My name is Robin Hoekstra. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Outworx Contact Center. We're located in Umhlanga, just north of Durban on the east coast of South Africa. We were established in 2013 and now operate from 3 delivery centers, 24/7, servicing the United Kingdom, the USA, and Australia, with a staff complement close to 1,500. I'm proud to be joined today on this session by the Group Head of Customer of musicMagpie, Jonathan Byrne. musicMagpie are a leader in the re-commerce of consumer technology, disc media, and books in both the UK and USA, and have entrusted their customer service work to Outworx since 2019. Jonathan and I will hopefully entertain you for a few minutes as we engage in an informal conversation touching on a few key points. And on that note, Jonathan, please will you introduce yourself and give the audience a headline view of musicMagpie.
Hi everyone, I'm Jonathan Byrne and I'm Group Head of Customer at musicMagpie. I've been with the business for 14 years. The reason why it's group in the title is that we operate out of 2 territories, so through 2 brands, in the UK as musicMagpie and also in the US, in the United States as Declutter. So we position ourselves as the smart, sustainable and trusted way to buy, rent and sell consumer technology and media products. To give you a context of size of the business, so we are the world's largest in terms of transactional volume through both Amazon and eBay, so worldwide. And we very recently, just a couple of months ago, successfully completed our IPO on the London Stock Exchange, which was obviously quite a milestone for the business.
Thanks very much, Jonathan. Just really want to touch on a couple of key points. When you considered outsourcing way back in 2019, can you give us a feel for why South Africa resonated well within your organization?
Yeah, so I mean, I'll go right back to the start, really, where we started to explore outsourcing, and I looked domestically first. After a bit of digging around, it just didn't feel quite right, and then the option of South Africa came up, and in particular Durban. So explored it and did a bit of research on it, and just you know, once I went over there, you know, the people, the warmth and energy, and the hunger and appetite for the guys to work. You know, they just absolutely just want to work, and you know, that warmth and energy. Before I'd even left Durban, I was committed to outsourcing in South Africa. So I'd made that decision before I was even back on the plane back to the UK.
Well, that's fantastic news, Jonathan, and some really good recollections from that time. I just want to sort of go through a few bits and make a bit of a bold statement, and then just ask you your feelings on that. You know, and I'm probably going to reiterate some of what Andy Searle said a little bit earlier on. An area that South Africa has become well regarded for is customer service, customer experience, and a holistic and empathetic engagement. South Africans are naturally friendly and service oriented and like to support customers by resolving whatever the issues might be. The robotic scripted call is not the South African experience, but rather an engaging conversation which has warmth and personality. The quality of customer engagement is seen in champion challenges where South African sites often sit top 2 amongst the multi-global sites, and in many cases sit above the in-house onshore centers. And what helps to support this service excellence is South Africa's approach to recruitment in the GBS sector. As you might be aware, South Africa has a very high unemployment rate, sadly sitting at about 30%. And with the youth unemployment rate of people between the ages of 18 and 35, an all-time high of 60.3%, equating to a large and available talent pool of young, enthusiastic, empathetic, and ready-to-work employees. South Africa is the birthplace of a global hiring initiative founded by the Rockefeller Foundation, known as impact sourcing, which is the intentional, inclusive hiring of marginalized communities and individuals. And due to the growth that the GBS sector has seen in South Africa, we engage the available talent pool of young, unemployed individuals, many of whom are successful school leavers and graduates, and bring them and their lived experience into the GBS sector to support their employment and career growth. These individuals are loyal, eager employees who offer a real sense of empathy to the customer. Now that's easy for me to say, Jonathan, but I'd really love to hear from you whether this rings true for musicMagpie and what your experiences have been in your interactions over the last couple of years, not only with Outworx, but also with South Africa.
Yeah, it's very much that, and it's been touched on quite a few times throughout the webinar. The key point for me when I went over there was the people. You know, I came into Outworx and I sat with some of the employees, you know, sat with them throughout their day, and the hunger and enthusiasm and just the general warmth of those people. You know, if I could bottle it up and bring it back to the UK, it's one of the first things that I told these UK agents when I came back. You know, it's that appetite to work and just improve themselves. They want to make a career of it. You know, they're coming out of school straight into work and just hitting the ground running. You know, they truly believe in their own capabilities, and they just go about it with a smile on the face, which, you know, then translates into the customers as well. You know, and we see that through CSAT and our other metrics as well. They absolutely just love talking to our customers, and our customers love dealing with these employees as well. So it's, you know, it's worked incredibly well.
Now, Jonathan, that's fantastic to hear, and a real validation for what we're trying to do as South Africa, and what we're trying to do as a sector more specifically. I just want to circle you back sort of 14, 15 months and back to March last year, when this global pandemic hit and really affected everybody around the world. You know, the response that South Africa as a collective country and as a sector embarked on, and I would like to suggest our relationship with musicMagpie at the time, we're just very respectful and appreciative of the way that musicMagpie responded and agreed to allow us to trial really work from home, because it was new and innovative for everybody here in South Africa. And, you know, if you just cast your mind back to the service levels and the fear and trepidation around what would happen during that work from home transition, and maybe you can just share some of your experiences or what happened since, you know, we sent people home.
Yeah, I mean, myself personally, I had a lot of comfort that it would have gone well from when I came over to Outworx and saw the disaster recovery plan. I never thought it would have to be used, but just a few months later it was used. So I had that comfort, but, you know, the rest of our business would, you know, they might not necessarily have that comfort because they've not seen it firsthand. So in the UK, I think we went working from home first, and we did that very quickly. And we were very proud of how we did it. And then when Outworx said that they were now moving to remote working, again, I had the confidence that it would have gone well, but it was all eyes on Outworx to make sure that that went well. And it literally could not have gone any better. So our service levels were not impacted whatsoever. All of our channels remained open. It was just seamless. So our customers didn't even know that it had happened. And to be honest, they still wouldn't even know that it's happening. We've still got our UK agents working from home. So it was just seamless, and has continued that way throughout the pandemic.
That's great to hear, Jonathan. Thank you very much for that. Now, again, as the sole client on today's webinar, and we've got a lot of people from the UK and some of our guests from the USA as well, I believe, that are listening in. As an organization, and a big organization in the United Kingdom, and as you having experienced these sort of issues firsthand, what sort of advice could you give our audience about the decisions regarding South Africa and why they should potentially consider South Africa as a destination of choice?
Yeah, I mean, firstly, if anyone's kind of got the idea of outsourcing and you truly believe in it, then I would tell you to persist with it, because it's something that I did. So we hadn't done any outsourcing whatsoever, and then we've gone from not outsourcing directly to offshore outsourcing. So our CEO needed turning around firstly, which, you know, I persisted with, and he continues to remind me that every single day, because of the, you know, he's glad that he kind of accepted my decision to do that. And once we finally got it over the line, it started to prove itself. But in terms of South Africa itself, what I think works so well for us is, again, it's like the people and the attitude, and also the accent in South Africa, as crazy as it sounds. It works perfectly well across our UK and US businesses. It's such a neutral accent and such a friendly accent. Again, it's something that you just wish you could bottle up and sell somewhere, because it's that good. So it just works perfectly well.
Oh, thanks, Jonathan. And I suppose really what's on my mind, and potentially some of the listeners and audience's minds, is what's next for musicMagpie?
Yeah, so we've got a couple of large initiatives going on at the moment. Both are up and running, but both quite small at the moment. So firstly is our rental offering. When I touched on earlier in terms of how we position ourselves, customers can now come to musicMagpie and rent from us. So a consumer can come and get a mobile phone for low monthly payments. The downside of that is there is this delinquency, arrears and collections, whatever you want to call it, on the back of that. So we'll be looking at, we've got a couple of agents in the UK doing that at the moment, and we'll be looking at getting Outworx to support us on that, not in terms of just volume, but also their expertise as well, in terms of sharing that knowledge that they've got from other clients as well. And then probably the more interesting one, not to downplay rental, but the kiosk one, which is a really initiative way for consumers to sell tech product to us now. So we're in a small scale at the moment. So we're in some supermarkets in the UK where consumers can create their order online and get their valuation for their product. They can go down to the local supermarket, put that product into a kiosk, which I kind of described as a backwards vending machine, where you put in a device into it. And then from there, it presents a real-time HD video into our operation where that product will be graded, security checks are done, all within a couple of minutes. And the customer is paid instantly once they accept it. So again, we'll be looking at expanding that over the next 12 months or so. And again, we'll be hoping to use Outworx to support us with that, where we'll use the agents to grade that product remotely, so a customer can be in a local supermarket, but getting a real-time grading through HD video in South Africa in a matter of seconds. So really excited about that one.
That sounds like a really great innovation from musicMagpie. And again, through your partnership with ASDA, we'll obviously really get great penetration throughout the UK. Jonathan, I really want to thank you for taking the time to come and have this sort of fireside chat with me today and to share some of your learnings about South Africa and about Durban and again, obviously about Outworx. And I'm going to pass us back now to Yunus Hussain, our coordinator, and I'm sure he's going to launch the Q&A session. Thanks very much, Jonathan. Really appreciate your time today.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Robin.
Thank you very much, Barry Janssen van Rensburg, Robin Hoekstra, and Jonathan Byrne for that excellent case study on shared services, technology, as well as customer experience. So it comes to a formal session on Q&A now. So are there any questions for the speakers, for Andy from BPSA, for Investec, for Robin out here in South Africa, or for Jonathan Ben? You can post your questions on the chat, or you can raise your hand, and we gladly will respond to you with an answer. There's one question for the speakers. We have often heard that South Africa might have challenges when it comes to scaling. Can the speakers provide their experience when they have to scale up to meet new campaigns? Robin or Jonathan?
Yeah, sure. Maybe I can lead in, and then Jonathan can maybe speak to it as well. Jonathan, if you don't mind unmuting and putting your camera on as well. So I think one of the primary reasons for musicMagpie's choice was initially the flexibility that it offered them. And I'll get Jonathan to speak to that in a second. But if I can give you some examples, I mean, I think besides Outworx and our ability to scale at short notice, particularly for retail organizations in the United Kingdom and North America, the scale is an annual thing normally. So, we would have peaks when it comes to Black Friday around sort of Q3 in the year. And we have an innate ability in this country to isolate and get in very quickly many enthusiastic youngsters who are prepared to come in and work for that peak period. I can give you just one example before I pass across to Jonathan. But if I look at Debenhams, we had a start with Debenhams several months ago whilst they were in administration and just before they were purchased, where we had to scale 340 people within 6 weeks. So, you know, that again bears testament to the talent pool that is available, the processes that are in place in various operators in this country. And it worked extremely well, and we were able to maintain that scale. So we were able to scale up to 300 odd and then scale down as well as they closed their doors. Jonathan, maybe you could share a little bit about your experience regarding peaks and troughs and South Africa's ability to meet your demand for flexibility.
Yeah, I mean, it's the exact reason that we went with outsourcing, and in particular Outworx. So because of the nature of what we do, our volume does fluctuate quite a lot from week to week, from day to day also, which becomes a problem. So we needed that element of flexibility, and since we've been with Outworx, we've been able to maintain our service levels throughout all of the peaks and troughs that we have. You know, the unplanned ones, we obviously have the planned ones, which are around Black Friday, as you mentioned, but those unplanned ones, you know, so we had just short of 1 million tickets throughout last year, with an average first response time of 3 hours, which we wouldn't have been able to do without having the partnership that we've got with Outworx. And I think the most recent example was at the start of this year, where in the UK, because of the pandemic and everyone switching to e-commerce, the delivery networks were starting to collapse because of the amount of parcels going through there, so which then obviously led into bad customer experiences. So we needed a handful of agents quickly. So, you know, we picked up the phone, got up to Outworx, and we had agents at their desk within a day or two. You know, they were being trained. They kind of got rushed through the training, which wouldn't normally be the plan, but it's something that we kind of wanted to commit to make sure we got these agents at their desks and serving our customers, and it worked incredibly well. And even through that very sharp increase in demand, we were able to maintain our service levels whilst maintaining our quality as well.
Oh, thanks, Jonathan. And I think part of the concern, and you've just touched on it now, is about having to rush people through training. And I do think that within the context of South Africa, with a number of call centers and delivery sites that are around, the aptitude and the attitude that the unemployed have who are interested in joining the sector is just something that brings goosebumps to my skin, I must be honest, because we generally would have a 1 week, what we would call an induction program, which is about work readiness and about information security and aligning people to the integration into the production floor. Our clients have various training periods that are required, and some go as little as 1 day when it's quite an easy sort of lead generation or back office sort of a web chat type service, or right out to the other end where we have insurance services, which is 6 weeks. But what you'll generally find is most companies, us included, that are in this space, that are used to retail clients and are used to these peaks and troughs, will build up a database of work-ready employees. So people will come in, we get applications every single day, and all our colleagues and competitors in Durban and around the country get applications from prospective employees every single day. And what a lot of us do with our training centers is that we take in the batches of people and we get them work ready. We then keep them on a hot list that as soon as we require scale in a short space of time, we're able to call on them. And then we look to the clients to as well participate in an accelerated learning process to just get us through some of those peak periods. Where there's planned peak, it's a lot easier because those are cyclical and they're expected. But where there's unplanned peak, where there's maybe been a pandemic or a closure of a call center that the client may have in the Philippines or India or in Belfast or in the UK onshore, they will then look to organizations like ourselves to fill those short-term gaps. And that's really when we need to move quite quickly. So thanks, Jonathan. Thanks for that explanation as well.
Thanks.
Eunice, can I pass it back to you?
Yes, thanks, Jonathan and Robin. And Robin, I think you've answered some of the questions that people are asking, but just to be quite specific, with the high unemployment level, particularly youth, how ready are these youth to work? 1, 2, and how long does it take to train such an agent?
All right. So, you know, again, Eunice, I think, and a very good question, but I think there's 2 parts to this, right? So if I, and I'm going to selfishly just mention Outworx first, we've made a point at Outworx of not employing anybody that doesn't have a grade 12 school leaving certificate. So when we get to a grade 12 learner that comes into the workplace, we find that they are a lot more ready and able to adapt to workplace learning in a far shorter space of time. Unfortunately, not everybody that is looking for work is in a position to make that transition as quickly. And then organizations like ourselves and my competitors in town have got bridging academies where they come into work programs or they come into internship programs. And we've got fantastic support around the country from various regional and provincial government structures where they fund these learnership programs and work readiness programs. So I suppose in a way, looking at it from two angles, there is a hand-holding between local government, national government, and the operators to build this pool of ready-to-work youngsters, and people like Harambee and CareerBox and people like that who are doing an amazing job at preparing these youngsters who then go out and look for work. Or we get the people who come in directly from school. Some people have had a couple of years of tertiary education, but can't afford to carry on, and they will then come into the sector. So it's quite a difficult answer to give you, Eunice, but I suppose in a nutshell, that's how I can explain it.
No, thanks, Robin. Andy, if you can just tell us what other shared services besides financial services are serviced out of South Africa?
Certainly, Eunice. So there's quite a lot of HR outsourcing and support that's done from a centralized perspective. There is quite a lot of group tech support that's provided, your normal infrastructure, desktop and IT services for the corporates as a shared service, as well as outsourced shared services in that space. And then a combination of both captive and BPO legal work as well. Tremendous amount of that work is done from South Africa, again, both as a shared service offering or simply as an outsourced offering. So it's quite broad. F&A does make up the lion's share at the moment, but I think it's important to note that the spectrum of those services is broad, being delivered from SA.
Okay, thank you, Andy. So tell me, in terms of the working from home concept, how ready is South Africa to roll this out on scale?
Shall I speak, Andy?
Yeah, please go ahead, Robin.
Yeah, sure. So, Eunice, if we go back to March last year, and the concept of work from home left us all with an unbelievable sense of foreboding and fear. I have to be honest with you, the expectation that we would be an amazing destination to work from home isn't something we had generally built into our business continuity platform and programs. I have to tell you, though, with much joy and with much pride, that the agents in this country responded incredibly well to work from home. The adaptation of technology, the readiness that operators showed to respond with almost immediate effect to mobilize people to work from home. And that was a combination of suppliers, of hardware, the networks to get LTE routers made available, to activate SIM cards at short notice, to try and help increase capacity. Because if you look at sort of work from home as opposed to work from the office, the networks themselves had a concentration of available bandwidth focused in and around the workplace during the work hours. And that would then shift, is my understanding, to the home spaces after hours when the bulk of people leave work and go home. What then happened in a very short space of time is obviously everybody worked from home, and the cell towers had to be upgraded very, very rapidly to accept additional connections and provide additional throughput, purely because there was this geographic move of people from centralized urban areas out into the more residential areas. But I would suggest that from March last year to now, I think the majority of operators in South Africa, not only GBS operators, but retail operations, not manufacturing obviously, but retail operations, support operations, local captives, domestic operations have adapted extraordinarily well. And I think that South Africa has really shown itself able to create a long-term sustainable work from home capability. And even if I look at the RFPs that we're doing currently, work from home is now a viable option and a critical success path option on a lot of these responses that we need to do. And we've got an amazing legacy over the last 1.5 years of demonstrable capability. So I think not only has our work from home ability put us on the map as a country, but we've also shown to our clients around the world that we have this extraordinary resilience and tenacity and ability to mobilize at short notice.
No, thank you, Robin. And then there may be just a question for Ms. Sadri Pillay of Investec. With the working from home dynamic, how are you as a company or industry dealing with the security issues related to GDPR and Papaya?
Thanks, Eunice. Good day, everybody. Just to add with just, as introductory before I comment on GDPR and Papaya, I think with Robin talking about working from home, we had to do that within a week and has been very successful. Imagine running operations from home. Never in my 30 years of being in financial services have I ever experienced that. So it was really, really phenomenal that we could get everybody to work from home. And I think the success in that has been our productivity levels have actually trebled. And I mean it, actually trebled. So that is really, really great that we've got these talented and very dedicated individuals in South Africa that puts business at the fore of everything we do. In relation to GDPR and Papaya, there wasn't a lot that we needed to change because we had a lot of our systems and processes in place. I think the issue was more around getting our risk capabilities enhanced, which we had to do very quickly to cater for that. We still work on a level of trust. I suppose, GDPR and Papaya could affect you being in the office or even being at home. It's just about having a trust relationship with individuals, putting more controls and monitoring it more closely. And I think that the teams that really needed to step up for this has been our compliance and risk team to their fore at everything that we do. They're in the business, they're monitoring and controlling every single day. So that's how we handled it from an Investec perspective. We had to relook at policies, which we have done very quickly as well. In terms of the UK side, we certainly needed to put in more controls and reporting to the Financial Conduct Authority around working from home, flexibility models, and all of that. So that has been in place. It's been consented to. The powers of being, the FCA is comfortable with it. So from an Investec perspective, we're very comfortable that we have all the specific measures and control to alleviate and mitigate risk in our business.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pillay from Investec, and that was a good response. Are there any other further questions? Going 1, 2, 3. Hi, Commissioner.
I'm here.
I thought you want to have a question, or are you okay?
I'm sorry. The connection was broken. I had to start from scratch. No. So I haven't heard anything.
Okay.
For the last minute or so.
Okay, my apologies. Okay, we move on then to the closing remarks and vote of thanks by our DG, Ms. Malebo Mapiche Thompson, who's also not our DG, but also the person that has been at the forefront spearheading this GPS sector. So over to you, DG.
Thank you very much, Eunice. Thank you to all the speakers Thank you to everybody who has made themselves available to this really wonderful and informative session. I hope that it was as useful to everyone as it was for us. The question and answer session really highlighted the fact that there is an interest in South Africa, an interest in knowing what South Africa has to offer, and we remain available to provide as much information as it is required by the prospective investors in order for them to come and locate in South Africa. So we are availing the services that are there at the embassy. So if there are any further questions, any further support that anyone from this session requires in order to make that decision, the embassy is available. The DTIC staff is also available to assist. So I'd like to thank you, Program Director, for directing us so well today, and to thank Her Excellency, the High Commissioner Nomathemba Tambo, the South African High Commissioner to the UK, for once again allowing us to use the platforms of South Africa House to continue to spread the good message of what is happening in South Africa. The keynote address, which was delivered by Honorable Minister Patel, to thank him for that keynote speech, which also served to contextualize broadly where South Africa is going with its economic policy, and communicate the message that this global business services sector is an important sector for the South African economy, and it's viewed so also from government. That is why an investor can expect that government will continue to play an important role in ensuring that where there are problems, any issues, that those issues are sorted so that you can continue doing your business. I'd like to also thank the colleagues that did the various segments of case studies, starting with Mr. Barry Jansef and Rensburg, the head of offshore technology at Investec, and also Ms. Sagri Pillay, who was on standby for any questions that any audience member may have had. Thank you to Robin Hoekstra, the CEO of Outworx, and to Jonathan Bain, Group Head of Customer customer music makeup in the UK. With this, I hope that the session has served to give food for thought for those that are looking to do business in South Africa. And I see that the contact details of our contacts in the US, in the UK are there, and we encourage you to please make use of all these facilities. And as I've indicated, we would also, through our information sharing platform through which we organize this, also make sure that you receive any information that you require on government officials, any of the speakers, so that if you have any further questions, those questions are answered. Thank you very much for making yourselves available. Thank you to the prospective investors. Thank you to those that are already in South Africa. Thank you to the audience in the UK and throughout the world who have joined the session. We look forward to doing business with you. Thank you very much.